Well, the Gospels mention this term Decapolis. It means 10 cities. One of these cities was located on the west side of the Jordan Valley, just to the south of the Sea of Galilee. And that's where we're going today for our video teaching from Beth Shean. Shalom, thanks for joining this teaching channel as we teach the Bible in the context of this land. We call it Israel. In fact, this topography map really helps us identify where we're heading to today. We're heading to a place called Beth Shean. It's about 20 miles south of the Sea of Galilee, and it's located right along the Jordan Valley. And as many of our people who travel with us to Israel when we lead trips, they say of all the archaeological sites that they enjoy and are impressed with the most, and this includes really Jerusalem, no doubt many people say, I was blown away by the ruins of Beth Shean. The city, by the way, was renamed about 250 years prior to the time of Jesus. It had the name Scythopolis. So we're in for a treat today as we travel and see the impressive ruins of this ancient city. Before we do this, make sure that you kindly subscribe and hit the bell if you want to keep on being notified of all of our new teaching that we produce here through Biblical Israel Ministries and Tours. And I also have to say this, an announcement, if you will, of a drone project that we now just completed. It's going to be called Biblical Israel by Air, and it's something that I think that you may be interested in. It's going to be a drone video project that includes over 55 biblical sites, as well as a couple other sites of interest, and 3 sites in Jordan, incidentally. And it's all from a drone perspective. It's about an hour and 6 minutes. We just finished the editing, and it'll be available on our website, biblicalisraeltours.com. Most likely sometime in August. So we're about 2, 3, 4 weeks away of completing this project. So hoping that that'll be a great resource for you to pick up as well. So with all of that aside, let's go to our site called Beth Shean. The ancient city of Beth Shean, or Scythopolis as it was called in the Roman period, is certainly one of Israel's most impressive archaeological sites. It's been thoroughly excavated, as you see, the Roman section of it, and what we're going to do is we're going to walk around these Roman ruins and then climb that green hill called an archaeological tell, or an ancient mound. But as we walk around this Roman city, let's start out with the bathhouses. There are 3 parts of a Roman bathhouse: a frigidarium, a tepidarium, and a collidarium. Now, hot air would have been blown underneath the floor, supported by these small pillars, with the hot air being generated from a fire outside of this building. In fact, here is the opening to where the hot air would have been forced into this particular room, underneath that archway there, and underneath the floor of the collidarium. Besides the bathhouse, a colonnaded street is also quite impressive here at Beth Shean, or Scythopolis. You can see the pillars, of course, reconstructed now, and the stone street. There would have been a channel underneath the middle of this street, with some original stones of the street still visible today. The pillars would have stood high here at this Roman city. Dionysus was one of the Roman gods honored here. Here is a capital with the picture or an image of this Roman god. The middle channel, the drainage channel underneath this street. This street would have been used by chariots, so you can understand that the stones were positioned in a sideway orientation so that the chariot wheels would not get stuck in the grooves. Pedestrians had a mosaic walkway or sidewalk. Look how impressive it is today. The small mosaics were made with tesserae, a term defining the small cubed-like stones used in a mosaic. And speaking of mosaics, in some of these side shops, some beautiful remnants of mosaics, restored of course, but you can see how colorful they are. These mosaics were not painted, but they represented the color of the stone itself. All kinds of figures and images used. Now there are tall pillars, and then there are massive pillars, such as these. In 749 AD, all of these pillars came down with the earthquake that literally brought an end to the city. This massive pillar represents that earthquake. So as we make our way around this Roman city, let's take a few more steps on the Roman street, and we'll walk up 190 steps to the top part of the site, or the Old Testament section of Beth Shean. Beth Shean is mentioned in 1 Samuel 31. The body of Saul was hung on the walls of ancient Beth Shean. So let's make a quick walk up to the top of the Old Testament site for a spectacular view of the Roman city below. We have already seen the bathhouse. We've walked the colonnaded street. The Agora now is coming into the middle part of the image, the picture. And we'll zoom in to the theater once again. We'll, of course, stop by the theater on our way out of this city. You can see there is a higher level, an extra level, if you will, to the theater, holding probably 6,000 to 7,000 people. So it was a massive city, as you see, well excavated in the 80s and 90s primarily. But as we come down off the tell, let's just make our way around the Agora, the marketplace, or the forum, using the Roman term. And here we see still much of the Agora being exposed, and many other structures and buildings as well. Now, of course, every big Roman city had to have a public latrine, and this is one here. You tell me if this would have been a comfortable situation for people needing to use the restroom. And last but not least, we enter the theater. This is not a restored theater like the one at Caesarea. This is intact, and you can see how impressive it was. The acoustics in any theater are really good. Your voice carries easily to the top row. Speaking of the top row, a great perspective from this area of theater looking down to the stage area. This theater still has, in part, the skene, or the backdrop, still intact. Partially, I should say. But an impressive view from the top row of the theater today. As we leave the site, the back of the theater and the entrance is called Vomitarium. What an impressive archaeological site of Beth Shean here along the Jordan Valley. So I hope you were impressed with how magnificent this site really is. It's a massive site excavated, as I shared, primarily in the 80s and 90s. Actually, unemployed people from Beth Shean, locals, were actually used to do the majority of the uncovering of the Roman city. But a spectacular city, and I hope you enjoyed it. Of course, the Old Testament connection is King Saul. After he dies just a few miles away on the top of Mount Gilboa, his body is brought here, and he's, of course, decapitated, and his body is hung on the walls of this city. Now, to date, walls have not been actually found that date to the time of Saul, but we think that perhaps it was on the wall of maybe the center building, the public square, if you will, because after all, what happened with David and Goliath? David, in a very shameful way, if you will, from the perspectives of the Philistines, he shamed Goliath by cutting off his head. So the Philistines shamed Saul and the Israelites by cutting off the head of this Israelite king. And of course, those from the other side of the Jordan, this would be the east side, Israelites come and rescue the body at night. So the question is, was Beth Shean mentioned in the New Testament? And did Jesus visit this site? Well, the answer is no and no. Jesus would not have entered into Gentile cities. This was a Roman city, of course. But I think maybe, just maybe, this kind of story maybe sets the context for a very famous parable that you know. It's the parable of the Prodigal Son. I think it should be called the parable of the compassionate father because of the Hebrew Jewish parallels with this gospel parable that Jesus shares. It seems to feature the role of the father more than the disobedience of the son. But that put aside, could you picture the scene being this? This good Jewish kid who wants his father dead, we know this because he wants his part of the inheritance. So basically he wants his dad dead, and he goes and squanders off his money, probably in a city like this. Now, for a Jewish kid not exposed to all this kind of culture, this would have been an amazing experience for this kid. But of course, a not so pleasant one as well, because he finds himself thinking about home. He's defiling himself. He's unclean, and he runs back to his father. So I would like to think that it was maybe a city like this, not saying it was Beth Shean, but maybe a city like this where this prodigal son comes to a set in senses after what he thinks is a great opportunity. But he comes back, and of course his father, with compassion, runs to him, undignified, by the way, in that Jewish culture. But he runs for him and ends up throwing a feast for this disobedient son. It's a beautiful picture of God's grace. So, Beth Shean, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be visiting other sites and these number of videos that will be forthcoming. In fact, be looking for at least a number of dozens of videos that we're going to produce of real sites with real video teaching on site. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and until next time, shalom, and may God bless you in every way. Thanks.